What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fi with my guy Brandon Cruz, which you know what that means. It's Thursday night football showdown time. We're going to talk through that. Anybody has any baseball questions, go ahead and drop them in there. I am playing the baseball slate as well, just a showdown over there. But I guess that before we get into all the NFL, my take on the baseball is to be lower on the pitchers, the starting pitchers. I really think there's an excellent chance that neither of them would go more than a couple innings. But with that said, get it out the way. Brandon, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited for this slate. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a fun one.
Nice. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think that it's like it's a third. The Thursday slates where they played Sunday. I'm always going to be looking at backup running backs, backup tight ends, but and usually I'm going to have less interest in the quarterbacks. That's just sort of the nature of the way that I play Thursday nights. My biggest buy-in right now has 3 running backs in it, 2 from one team to 1 from the other. But yeah, so I'm curious to get your thoughts because I know I know you dig into this stuff pretty well. Curious to see what you're getting over on, what you're into at captain. Just sort of thought we'd start off with a general conversation like that. I'm on the road, obviously it's a little harder to share my screen. But why don't we talk about what you're interested in tonight?
Yeah, we'll just talk today. We won't worry about sharing a screen or anything. If people want to see, the projections and all that, they can join the site. So I even made a video last night because I was messing with the new Saber Sim, getting familiar with it before it's like crunch time for anything, and I just went ahead and just started working on the showdown last night. And I recorded my process or how I think through things. But one thing that I noticed, and it's kind of going back to like the first couple of weeks, is that pricing's pretty soft across the board. We have mispricings either in the value range, and then just the most expensive guy is pretty cheap. Like like what is like Evans is like 10-2. It's very rare that you have the most expensive guy on a slate be like near $10,000. And secondly, what I found is that this, at least salary wise, it's very easy to team stack either way, like towards Atlanta or Tampa Bay, which is typically something that we don't normally get. And what I mean by that is like you can have 5 guys, you can have the entire offense from one of the teams, depending on how you build tonight. Which typically, people would argue that you want to stack quarterbacks or play quarterbacks in the flex when you can get their entire offense and stuff. And today's salaries really make that possible for either direction. And so that was probably the biggest thing that I saw when I was just looking through how these builds get. For me personally, I'm going to play a little bit more than normal on this slate just because I like the build. So like both $50 single entries and stuff is probably the biggest I'm going to get into. But even then, like I typically don't play those unless I really like the build or the slates.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think this is a very interesting one to build on because I mean, I'm looking at just the captain ownership over here, and it's kind of I think it's a little too aggressively targeted on very few guys. And for one, I have hardly any. I just go out there and say I have almost no quarterback captains in Showdown. I think I ended up with maybe like 5 lineups out of 50 that have a quarterback as a captain. And honestly, I only have like 15% Cousins in my utility spot. I think I have like 25% of Mayfield, but I'm very happy to play the running backs and wide receivers in a game like this. Thursdays generally mean, look, like I said, backup running backs are going to get more work. So I'm looking a lot at Algier and Robinson builds with like throwing in, one of Mooney, McLeod. Part of the problem with not playing the quarterbacks is that I really like McLeod tonight, and I'm very much able to pay for the quarterbacks. But those are sort of the guys who I find myself heavier on, and just talking about what I like for a game script. And we've got D Pope here in chat talking. He likes it set 27-20 Tampa, and D Pope's been great. He always pops in and has a lot to say, and he's been really good at getting scores right. I actually like this game to hit the under, and I like the Falcons. So I am finding myself with more defenses and kickers and leaving more money on the table than I expected to. How are you treating the slate as far as kickers go? I mean, it's been a kickers year, so we have to acknowledge like kickers are putting up numbers on some Sundays that would have won the Sunday slate. It would have been the highest scoring numbers of the Sunday slates. It's been wild. Are you getting to much of that tonight? Because there's a lot of offensive weapons on both these teams, and I think naturally they're going to get a little forgotten about. So I thought it was good to get well overweight them and underweight the quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on that?
So a main portion of my lineup is determining if I want to use McLaughlin, because I think he's actually better than Koo in this sense. Like I think him at I think at him at $5,000 makes a lot more sense, and I would actually prioritize him over
Over
Koo in the sense I don't think I want to play both of them. Like I'm gonna be just honest, like the 1v or actually the 2v2 that I'm really dealing with for my lineup is McLaughlin and London, or Robinson and Otten. Like those are the two. That's the 2v2 that I'm probably going to spend the next 2 hours debating on what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean I really like McLaughlin, and
Yeah, I'm very. I do as well, and I actually do have more of him than I do of Koo. So we're on the same page. Although I'm happy for Koo in general. I like that. I think guy's a great kicker and got his career off to a rocky start, and then literally has been like one of the best kickers in football since then. So, but do you find that? I know you. A lot of the times we've talked, especially when we talk basketball showdowns in the past. We want a cat. We can go 100% captaining on guys. I just find myself naturally spreading out a little bit more tonight. Personally, I have a lot of different captains, which I wasn't expecting when I first looked. But like I like Ray McLeod. I like I mentioned, I like Mooney as a little bit off the board-ish guys. Bucky Irving is going to probably be more popular captain than people think, but I like Bucky Irving. I like a little bit of Algier there. I don't mind when everyone jumps off Kyle Pitts. I don't mind a little bit of that. So I'm a little more spread out than maybe you're supposed to be, but I actually feel pretty okay with it on this slate. I think this game is going to be a little bit underproductive. And it would, we've seen these Atlanta receivers. We've seen Mooney get targeted as much as anybody on that team. And we know Ray McLeod is like Mr. Showdown. So I personally am going to find myself, definitely spreading out at captain. What is your, in terms of like exposure, what do you think would be like, okay, let's say you're playing 150. Do you think you would have 60% of one guy as captain tonight? I mean, I'm not saying in general, I'm just saying tonight. How would you treat something like that? Because I know a lot of our guys are playing those.
I mean the only guy, let me go ahead and look at my stuff really fast, because my 3 captains that I was deciding between today were Robinson, Mayfield, and Godwin. I like Evans, not as a captain, but I like him as a play. I think honestly, Evans is probably the guy that you want to prioritize in the flex, just because you can easily get to him and Mayfield. And Godwin, has a real chance of probably being the best captain on the slate. For me personally, I didn't see the need to play Ray in the captain. Now you can, if that's the case, you're playing him like both quarterbacks, Godwin, Robinson, like that. That's probably going to be a very, very popular lineup. I just don't know how well that lineup ends up scoring, especially if these teams, as you kind of stated, like you're kind of heavier on the running game. I don't exactly know how the Ray lineups perform, because if you're playing him, you're wanting to pay up for both quarterbacks and like the receiving game and stuff. So like it for me, it wouldn't make sense to use him in the captain, because then if you're using him and then the running backs, like I feel like that's kind of counterproductive with that type of build. So this is one where I probably use Robinson, Mayfield, or Godwin as my captains. I also want to ask you, what are you doing between McLeod and Shepard? Because they're, in my mind, they're the exact same play. I think Shepard would be probably projected lower, but the fact that they're in 2 different price ranges, and the fact that I think that you're just going to need one of them. Do you have a preference between those two?
I don't
Or
think
are you
first of all, my take is that Ray McLeod is actually a part of this offense for Atlanta. I don't think Sterling Shepard is. I think there was a borderline fluky thing that could happen again, but this is not a part of the team, in my opinion. I mean, look, Ray McLeod's gotten work every week. He said even last week when he had 6 catches, and I know they get 5 targets for Shepard. I used to be. I've had such a hard time with Shepard because for so long playing him at like minimum cost when he was. If you looked at the Giants wide receiver chart when he was playing there, they would have him as the number one receiver.
Yeah.
200. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I have a hard time with it. Maybe I'm letting my bias get in the way. I have some Shepard. I don't have any Shepard captain. I just mentioned the McLeod captain because would McLeod at 12 fantasy points be enough, which he very, very, very likely could. He had 11 in the last game. Would the McLeod at 12 fantasy points, if you can get in Godwin, Evans, Mayfield, and Bijan, would that be enough? And then how many dupes are you going to run into if you do that? Even if you're getting different in like the lottery, like you're still going to, anybody who does have it, even if it's like 1% or 2% Ray, like you're going to end up with the same builds as everybody. So I would encourage people to try to leave a little extra money on the table, go down a spot. You know what I mean? And again, I just going back to this point, and I'm seeing it from Daniels in chat. Actually, he's talking about he's usually higher on captains. I'm sorry, on kickers. But tonight there's just so many guys that are in the way, and that's what I think other people are going to see this slate as too. Because like going through it, I've already named 7 position players that I really like. This is these are not highly. So I guess that's my answer to Shepard as well. I'm not going to treat him as if he's as important. If it burns me, it burns me. But I'm not even sure that at his price, that at 7 fantasy points will be good enough. Where I think McLeod actually has the upside for double-digit points much easier than he does. That's just my personal take. And again, I'm open to being wrong, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I do also want to say that typically I don't really care about dupes. I play enough esports, which we can talk about some results that happened today on that. But I play enough esports to where like duplications are pretty much like just part of it. Like the optimal is going to be played most of the time. But just for like a heads up, like the McLeod captain with Godwin, Robinson, Mayfield, and Cousins. You can probably guess who's the last guy in there. That is projected to be the most duplicated lineup tonight. And
how is that possible? Because I'm looking at McLeod's ownership at captain as being, it's actually, it's gone up since I looked earlier. So they've got him up to 5% now, and I had him earlier at 2%. So I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah, like in most situations, even some of the smaller contests, like that's projected to have 35, 45, 55, 60 duplications depending on what contest it's in. And okay, I mean that might not be the most. I'm sure there'll be more, but like that's a huge number for like that. That for me, that's like I have to avoid that.
Right.
And so like that's kind of where I'm on.
And I did want to take a moment to say, what you were just talking about the esports. Shout out to it's 3pandemic is the name in our Discord. It's actually his actual name is I believe it's, let me just double check the name before I make a fool of myself. But because it's hard, you're dealing with a bunch of different things. But Joshua 1993 is his name on DraftKings. But he solo shipped it with one entry, the championship, and for $100K. That's pretty sick. So good for him. Sheets came in third, very fittingly to Sheets for almost 11K. But man, we've been hitting a bunch of showdowns lately, and LOL. I guess that's sort of like what we're becoming as a site. I mean, look, I won the showdowns. Sheets won Sunday, Monday the showdowns. I won the big showdown on Tuesday. Wednesday we didn't have anything, but then Thursday these guys come back and destroy the LOL streets, and really love to see it. So shout out to those guys for sure. It's been wild to see just how seriously some of these people take this, because I never took it that seriously until I started talking with Sheets. And I don't play it much myself, but I was really intrigued by that, and I thought it was really cool. So massive shout out there.
Yeah, no, I mean between Sheets, OG the Gifted, 3pandemic, D-Man, like I mean some of the best like LOL players who like entered a lot. Like a lot of these guys in here are putting hundreds and hundreds on each slate that starts at like 2 a.m. or whatnot. Like a lot of the best like League of Legends players are legit in the Discord. I'm not just saying that. Like if you pull the CSVs, a lot of the guys taking down these contests are in the Discord. So that's really cool to at least have them under the banner of subscribers who use SaberSim through us. Like I'm very, very proud of that.
Yeah, SaberSim and Sheets' projections for those when he does them. It's absolutely it's awesome, man. There's a bunch of people piping in chat that I wanted to touch on. It's always good to see Philip back in here. He said, "What's up to you?" That guy's great. We talk a lot during basketball season. He pops in all the time. And then I'm just trying to read through these questions. Samuel is asking, do I uncheck any lower projected players? it's not that they're lower projected. It's actually usually I'll uncheck somebody that's higher projected. I want to try to get as different as I can when you're talking about beating 100,000 people on a 1-game slate. So I would rather just try to make a fade. I almost was tempted to do that with Cousins and Baker today, but I felt like it was a little too aggressive for me to just completely X them out. I actually thought that was a reasonable take, though, to try and gamble on that. It was like the Masters, I think, last year when Sheet said, okay, I'm not playing Scheffler, I'm not playing Rory, I'm not playing Rahm, I'm not playing whatever it was, the top 5 guys. I'm just going to X them all out and see how things happen. And I'm like, okay, that's a bold strategy. But that was what I considered doing tonight, and just saying, hey, you know what? What if I just have no Cousins and no Baker and let it roll with it? The problem is, especially for the Cousins side of the argument, the hardest thing to do against Tampa Bay is run the ball. It's what they're good at. You saw Saquon with his career low in carries last week. It is hard for them to run the ball. It's hard to run the ball against them. Whereas Atlanta wants to be running the ball a lot, so you're going to be forced into that passing game, which is what turned me on to guys like Mooney and McLeod and going a little further down. You know, Mooney, McLeod, and obviously the obvious London. But I thought it was just like it's kind of like a battle of which is going to work. Anyway, but I still ended up with Robinson and Algier in one of my big buy-in lineups, so I might have to change that. But and then the other question that it was asked, I guess, to me was Otton a sneaky play? He asked. I think Otton's going to be lower owned than a lot of the other guys. I don't think it's going to be crazy low owned. In fact, I think because of his price, I'm just going to double check where we've got him right now. About 30% in the flex, and actually like 3% in the captain, which is a little higher than I would have thought. But like I said, it's a spread out captain slate, in my opinion. Let's see. This is the thing. Everybody's it can't be a take to fade Pitts. I just want us to throw that out there. It's got to be a take to either play Pitts or not. Pitts or not. Everybody in the entire fantasy sports world and even the regular sports world has done nothing but hate this guy since he's come in the league, and for good reason. I thought he was going to be a superstar. I thought you had a wide receiver playing tight end. I don't know how much of it's coaching and how much of it's actually him, but some of the routes he runs are really bad. I do think that because of the narrative, if this game was played week 1, I think Pitts would have been the highest owned captain from Atlanta. It would have gone Bijan then Pitts. And I personally, I get why everyone's off of it, but this could be the matchup where you jump back on it because he's getting 2% ownership as a captain. There's no reason why he couldn't be the highest scoring receiver in this game. Maybe Godwin or Evans, have something to say about that. But it's completely possible if they in fact do stop the run, which I'm anticipating that Tampa Bay, like they usually do, they'll be able to stop it. I know. Don't look at their numbers from this year, guys. They didn't have Vita Vea for, was it 1 or 2? And last year, and the last 5 years is a better sample size for me when they basically play the same structural defense that they always have. You can beat Tampa Bay through the air. You're not going to beat them as easily on the ground. Just wanted to throw those quick points out there before I forgot. Seeing what else I've got here. I've got both kickers as captains at 5%. I got a lot of spread out. I might have to tighten this up a little bit. It feels like a little too spread out for me, captain-wise. What am I missing here, Brandon? Is there anything else, other names or anything that we haven't talked about?
The two, I mean, I'll talk about Pitts really fast. If I get beat by Pitts, whatever, I think he's the worst player in the slate. I just think he's
everybody else seems to agree with you.
I don't think that's I just think Kyle Pitts is horrible. I think his price is horrible. I think that he literally decides a lineup for you. Mm-hmm. And I just hate playing players like that, and especially in a mid range. Like Pitts could just sink a lineup and just cause it to be donated. And that's just a risk that I just I'll do a lot of stupid things. I just don't see that working today.
You're not going to do that stupid thing this night.
I don't know. I'll do a lot of dumb stuff this weekend for NASCAR, but playing Pitts, I'm just not doing that on a Thursday. And the reason I want to go back to McLeod and Shepard really fast is because I don't think there's anybody else you play in that range. Like, I think it goes. Actually, let me look at salary to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn here. But I mean, I'm not playing the Buccaneers. I'm not playing the Falcons defense. So for me personally, when I look at the salary, I think your lowest player is either Shepard or McLeod. I don't think you play them together. That's just where I'm at. And so, because I saw a question related to
that seems a little bit aggressive to play both of them and just hope for the best. don't really know. Look, you're playing 150 and you had that in one lineup. That makes perfect sense to take a stab at just getting completely unique and probably leaving like 8,000 on the table. But I don't think you need to play them together, do you?
No, no. I was just using like I think each lineup either you end with McLeod or Shepard, depending on what type of salary and you're using for captain and whatnot. But I wanted to touch on the uh, McLeod like ceiling projection or whatever. That is a situation to like, in my opinion, if he scores over 11 points, it's irrelevant. Like it doesn't matter what a ceiling is, like past a certain point, or a projected total that a player has, like it really doesn't matter. I don't think he scores over 9 points today. And I think Shepard can realistically score 6. I think it's much closer than people are giving it credit for, especially in a build perspective where if you're at Shepard, you're most likely paying up for a bunch of studs, whether you have a captain stud or not. And so it's really going to like if you're using like Shepard, right? There's real chances those lineups either have like both quarterbacks, both wide receiver ones, both Godwin and Evan together, and so it's really coming down to like a 4-point projection difference between like a total, like your total projected lineup total, and it's just being determined on what like salary you're falling if you're getting McLeod or Shepard. So I honestly don't think like McLeod is honestly that big of a deal or it's important. Like I think it's a direct like toss up of who works out more, because I think it's going to come down to salary, unless, as I said, if it becomes relevant in McLeod, scores over like 11 points, then it automatically defaults to him. But if it stays under 10 for him, I think it's a coin flip and it'll come down to salary restraints.
Well, and just to throw just to fire back a little bit or play devil's advocate, I do think that it's a big gap. And one thing is Ray McLeod, like they want to get him involved in general because of his he's got burst, and they'll give him a rush, they'll give him a handoff most games. I think tonight he probably gets one. They are going to try and hit them, try to hit him for a big play. But in general, I mean, we've seen more targets with him than we have in the past, and maybe I am being biased because I have a pretty strong take on it, but I actually don't feel the 1,800 is different enough for. I mean, just even the projection is interesting for McLeod to be projected double what Shepard is, which is fair enough. That is what his price is double. But do you need that 1,800 that much is my question, especially when I'm sitting here coming on talking about how I love kickers tonight. I may not actually need the 1,800 enough. In fact, I may not need either of it. Kate Otten could be your cheapest player in some lineups. Speaking of other cheap guys, because you're right that I'm not going beneath those guys at all. If it was, it would be Cameron Johnson for Tampa Bay, which would be the sneaky, hey, maybe he actually is more Sterling Shepard this week than Sterling Shepard was. I think it was. My take is that it wouldn't surprise me if Sterling Shepard caught like 2 more passes this whole season. It also wouldn't surprise me if he had another game where he has 3 or 4, but I don't expect much more than that. And there there really isn't any other super cheap options. When Algiers 4,800, not much of a difference there. I actually, again, I'm overweight the defenses and kickers tonight, so I'm able to spend up more. Maybe that's why I didn't get to Shepard, because I already made a commitment to McLeod a little bit. But maybe it's just different approaches to the slate. I mean, it's just where do you need to save that extra, 1,800, or if you're going to be so bold at captain, at what is that, 2,700? Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like I personally. I'm not going beneath Ray. Now that I'm looking, I have one lineup with Sterling Shepard in it, so I don't want to be a liar. I'm not going to change it, but I don't think I'm going to end up adding to him much. But I get your take, and also he's going to be 1/3 the ownership, maybe even more than McLeod. So that is the real big one. But I again, these teams both are happy to kick the ball. Why can't I get the name straight? Koo has terrific, range. I just feel like it's going to be that game. I really feel like it's going to be that kind of a, I don't know. I'm thinking like 20-17 type of deal. That's sort of where I'm at with this game. Maybe, again, I could be wrong, but I wanted to play an angle, and that was mine tonight. Daniel's asking a really good question. How much to leave is 5K is what feels about right. 4,500. I think it's a good number as an outline for Showdown, and I'll let Brandon answer this one. But I am willing to, on this particular Showdown, I have like some with 9K and 8K left on the table.
Holy shit, dude, that's crazy.
But those are they're lottery chances. Do you know how many times 10K on the table? It's already won 3 showdowns, 10K plus, 3 showdowns already. I mean, that's the lottery. That's what you do. You get wild in a few spots. If I'm going to play both kickers and I play one of the defenses and then I play the chalk, I'm still not going to. I'm not going to be within 10,000. You know, especially if I'm captaining the kicker.
I'll tell Astukas this, and other people who know me, like, will like review like F1 or like NASCAR lineups and whatnot, and I'll be like, that lineup is stupid, and they're like, why is that lineup stupid? It's like, because I would never play it. Like, I would, honest to God, never play a showdown NFL line with like 10. I'm just not gonna win that contest. Like, there's no way in hell I'm doing that.
No, but that's the thing. Like that is. It's taken me a long time to try to figure out things. I think last year or the year before last, I started to hit a little bit of a sweet spot with the showdowns because I really couldn't get my head around just making bad decisions over and over again. But now that I understand that bad decisions are what the actual winning decisions are, it's a little bit easier for me to be a little bit more flexible and go, okay, you know what? No, there is a plenty of range of outcomes where both kickers outscore Bijan Robinson tonight. That is totally within the range of outcomes. Now, you're not just saying, okay, I'll play them instead of Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that's a real thing.
I think it's even harder for me because, like, like this weekend for NASCAR, for example, my entire portfolio will probably be leaving like $15,000 on the table in terms of salary.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've won so many NASCAR lineups doing that, I'm like almost even like more aggressive in not doing that for other sports since I've had so much success doing it for, like, I can never leave that much for NFL.
See, this is what happens. I used to be like that because for baseball, I'm willing to leave whatever amount. I don't even care what the amount is. I leave 15,000 on there. If I don't really care. If I'm just playing the 7, 8, 9 hitters, that's fine by me. But overall, is it optimal? Are you gonna, can you go into every slate with that strategy? I'm never going to pay. I'm always going to leave 15,000 on the table. No, that would be stupid. But if you're throwing it into the mix of the range of outcomes in what, to me, I can tell myself a story that makes plenty of sense why the kickers can outscore even the best, on-field players. That's enough for me, and I'm willing to take that gamble. And we've got million X's here in the chat saying that Sterling Shepard captain for all the money. So you're not the only one doing it, I guess, or you're not the only one thinking about it.
I think that'd be a horrible idea.
Yeah.
I think that'd be horrible. As a guy who's playing Sterling Shepard, I think him and captain is horrible.
It just doesn't on this slate. I couldn't get there. If he outscores either of the kickers, I'd be very surprised. Very, very, just beyond. Actually, I'd be really surprised.
One thing, just lastly, one thing that, like, a slate like this, I think is a great example if you want to go ahead and look at what like other players do. And I'm not name dropping in a sense to name drop. Like, I don't know them personally, but like, for example, like, I think the luxury box tonight would be a really, really good contest to look at once it finishes tonight. And like, I'm like, what is McLovin playing in that? What is Utica playing in that? What are they leaving on the table in that type of contest? And I would then like backtrack, and whatever they do in that contest, regardless if it's right or wrong, like, that's what their stuff is showing. And if they're not leaving money on the table, I would be like, oh, that was probably the correct move. Or if they leave
I agree with that, but you have to be max entering whatever tournament you're talking about for that to be effective. Because if I'm playing 20 or 30 or even 50 and they're playing 150, there's a huge gap, and I have to be much more bold than they are.
Well, no, the like the luxury box is like the $3,000 entry where it's
no, absolutely for that tournament. But they're never going to play that. That's not a line they're going to run in the. I mean, they'll run in the millionaire, but they're not going to build a set of millionaire winning lineups on that one.
Yeah, but like the way, like, I usually go, I guess, like reverse engineering, but like typically those are like the best lineups that are played. Now, I understand sometimes they don't always win like the millionaire maker or whatever, but like those are this is a slate where I will look at that contest to see what those guys end up getting, because I think those would be the all around better lineups on the entire slate.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Look, I trust. It's fair to a certain point. These are awesome projection guys who are going to rely heavily on it. I believe I know as much or more about football than most of the guys. Not necessarily everybody. Basketball, I'll go up against anybody with basketball. I'm not going to argue. But football, there's definitely plenty of guys out there who know more. And there's plenty of guys out there who know more than me who also can't win at DFS because they can't figure out the little intricacies. It's a really fine line trying to meld these different things together. I'm going to jump over to Brandon. It's a question Brandon asked or comment he made. he was saying to play devil, he gets a low scoring view, but to play devil's advocate, these are two middling defenses. There's a big chance this game ends up as a shootout. And I think if this game was on a Sunday, I'd be targeting this game. If this game on a Thursday after a Sunday early in the season, it is important to get back on track and win for, or actually, they're both coming off wins, but they're, in the same spot so far, basically, almost. Tampa Bay is 3-1, I guess, versus 2-2. But there's a chance for it being a shootout. But am I going to bet Kirk Cousins, Mr. Showtime? Am I going to bet on him in a shootout? I don't know. It just doesn't feel that way to me. And I could be completely wrong. I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if there ends up being 55 combined points. I just want to play the angle that makes the most sense to me. And that is Thursday games that have an elevated total. When you hit above that 42 number on Thursday night games, even if you're two good offenses against struggling defenses or whatever, I just would rather be on the lower side when they start making those that high. Now, if you start making them like 33 and 34, if it's like Miami, whatever, I'll just gamble that somehow somebody's defense is going to luck into a touchdown and somebody will make 5 field goals or something. But tonight, I look, there's still a lot of guys who can put up fantasy points regardless of whether there's a lot of scoring or not. But I do think that the kickers and defenses should be considered in this one. Cody Thompson elevated for what it's worth. What is that worth?
I have no clue who that is.
He's basically, he'll be the person. So I mentioned earlier that Cameron Johnson was a guy I would consider. I believe they're both going to be activated, but active. But that's the fourth receiver for Tampa Bay, basically, is what you're looking at. Well, I mean, not counting the tight end, obviously, and Naughton. So it's the fourth. Basically, he'd be the fourth string guy. But would he even be the fourth string guy? You'd be debating between he and Cameron Johnson. It is important to notice that, Daniels. I appreciate that's a good comment. I don't know if this is the slate where you need to play the $200 receiver who's the fourth stringer. To me, that's what I think. I think Brandon and I are. We might disagree about some things, but I think we're on the same page with that. We definitely are spending down in the similar range. We're not going below that because we just don't see it happening.
Yeah, pricing is so soft. You don't need to be that low.
Yeah, I mean, there was one slate where they messed up, and Jameson Williams, they made him like 600 or something because he was only playing like 10 snaps a game. But in those 10 snaps, he was getting 6 targets, and like 2 of them were bombs, and it was like bizarre. And I'm like, this guy might be the best receiver in this game. He's coming back from a million different problems off the field, and now we see right now, he's what is he, 8th in the league in receiving? He's become a legit star. Anyway, just thought it was funny.
So this is really my last question or thing that I'm just curious on what your take is. Like, who, regardless of pricing, who do you think scores more DraftKings points, Loudon or Robinson? Because I think it's Robinson, but I think Loudon is very, very close to it. And when I think of that, I then see Loudon as a better play. I literally just said don't, and like the salary doesn't matter, but that's just my take on that. I'm just curious what yours is.
Wait, you mean London? Okay, I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so look, I'm a huge believer in Drake London, and I think he's really talented. Cousins is a little bit all over the map in general, but he's been a very wide receiver friendly guy in the past. I think it's a good take that you made. I think London might be closer than maybe the projections would indicate. I think that's a good take. I'll tell you right now, I've got more London captains than I do Bijan, so that should tell you that I guess I like that. But I also like the Mooney. I think it might be the Mooney night. Mooney's been great, by the way, and he's just barely twice missed. Literally a yard away. That one game, I think Sheets would have won the big showdown with Mooney, or he would have chopped it. But Mooney has been heavily involved in this offense. The only thing about the thing with Mooney is that I don't think his role is so much. I mean, it's been more, but they've looked for McLeod. Cousins is always like, look, when he had his obviously target in Justin Jefferson, he was much more targeted on his top receiver. And London's getting plenty of work, don't get me wrong, but Mooney had Mooney having 12 targets and London having 8 tonight wouldn't surprise me the least bit. And Ray having 8 and London having 8 wouldn't surprise me either. But if you want the guy who's going to get like 18, I think London actually could have like 18 targets on a certain type of game script. Tampa, the way you do beat them is through the air. So like if this is a Sunday slate, I would have a stack of this game, and on one side I'd probably be playing okay, forget the quarterback. I would probably be playing London, and I'd probably be playing Godwin and or Evans or something like that along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then depending on Mooney's price, I probably would get him involved. And if they made McLeod 3K flat, I probably would play McLeod as well. But I would have exposure to all those guys on a main slate, but not on a Thursday after a Sunday. And I just think both teams are going to try to run the ball, and I don't think it's going to work very well for Atlanta. Even with that, Robinson will catch enough passes to make him viable, but because of that, I think I kind of lean your London take. I kind of like that one. Okay. I think you might be the better answer there.
All right, yeah, because as I said, that's just my debate on if I run the London and McLaughlin or Robinson and Otten. Like that's that. I'm leaning more towards the London one, but I was just curious on your opinion.
Oh no, yeah, it was a good question because it made me actually think. Like sometimes you don't you go through a whole slate, you go through all these things, but then until somebody actually asks you a question, one of the things I used to love about doing shows with RG, like when I first started doing this stuff, because I'd be planning things out and I was winning at DFS. You know, they asked me to send in a sample and do it with my buddy, and they're like, oh, you're made to do this. So I started doing it. I was like, what is this actually going to hurt my play? Is this a bad idea? Is this whatever? And it was the opposite. I was just off to the races because every single question from every other intelligent person that I could ask, I asked them. And every time they'd ask me a question, I'd go, maybe I don't think about that the same way I thought I did, you know? And that London is a great example. And this is Brandon's question. If you're only playing one Falcon, which would you play? I would play. So the problem, this runs into a whole different type of issue. And I just want to touch on it before we get out of here. If you're playing just one of them, I have lineups with just one of each, by the way, but with just one, I have both. Mm-hmm. But if you had to pick one of London or Bijan, the difference is Bijan is not necessarily relying on anyone else. So no quarterbacks getting any bonuses. London hasn't gotten any Jets. I don't think he has. I might have had one.
No, I don't think he has. Or if he had, I'm pretty sure he has not been used in the running game. Let me look.
I don't think so, but he might have had like one end around that I'm missing. Yeah, no, he hasn't had anything. Not at all yet. I actually think he's usable in that. But so because of that, I think that honestly, if I was just playing one, if you were trying to say what's the best ROI move, I think it's probably Robinson. I think that if you want to, in terms of the differentiating factor, because in general, a running back can control the game, get most of your fantasy points, have the other team getting all the fantasy points catching up. You know, that's let's say Bijan scores 2 touchdowns in the first half early, they kick a field goal, they're up 3 scores in the third quarter. Drake London's out of the game, not out of the game, scripted out a little bit. But again, and the problem is if it goes the other way and all those other guys go crazy for you and you've got London on coming back, but then it probably means points for Cousins too. It probably means a lot of points for Mooney. It probably means they're just throwing the ball a lot more than they usually do.
But yeah, and I mean I asked that, you know, with all those caveats like well aware, because I mean, you know, Robinson's a really, really good pass catcher as well. I just asked straight up, you know, just you know, tout to tout who you think does better between London and Robinson, you know, with all that acknowledged. At least that's how I look at those questions.
Yeah, and even if the thing is, I'll say one thing about Bijan Robinson. I don't think he's hit his projection this season. Just something to keep an eye on. Like there is still Algier in the backfield. I love Robinson as a player, as a talent. I'm still not sure they've entirely figured out how to run things in Atlanta offensively, but he hasn't hit his total. I mean, he hasn't hit his projection so far this season. It hasn't hit his projection any of the days, even when he's projected for less than he's projected for tonight. So I think London is the higher upside answer, but I don't think I would play just London as a 1-5 as much as I would like to play Robinson as a 1-5. Mm-hmm. If I was playing London, I'd probably like to go more like 2-4 or 4-2 or 3-3. Those would be where I would favor London more. But it's an interesting thought process. All right, Brandon, before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think Tampa Bay wins this. I think Mayfield has a good day. I'm much higher on a higher scoring game than you are, which honestly that's an irrelevant take.
No,
I love it. Personally, I don't like when shows are like arguing what the total is and stuff. Yeah. I'd rather that be like at the very end versus an opener. I think it's a higher scoring game, but that's why I'm talking about it at the end. I think that's honestly a thing that wastes too much time when people debate what's the total going to be.
I will say that if this total was out on a full week's rest and you're going Sunday to Sunday for both teams, or just a regular week game, or Sunday to the night following Monday, I would definitely have thought this total would have been over 50. It seems like it should be higher than it is, but there's a reason. And I'm just telling you, I've watched too many Thursday night football. Look at the Cowboys and Giants. We just watched this. You know what I mean?
I know, dude. I'm so pissed. He couldn't throw a touchdown.
It was the hardest thing to watch in my life. Like,
dude,
the Giants
that
field goals.
Yeah, so like that, that approach last week, I'm doing the exact same thing again because it like I didn't lose money with it, but watching Jones, I basically just sweated the entire night. Will he throw one touchdown? That was the most frustrating thing I've ever watched in my life.
Oh my God, that's what happens every now and then. It's Jared Goff is another one who's famous for doing that. He'll have like 350 yards passing. You're like, can you get the one touchdown? Like,
yeah.
I finished fourth in the millionaire thing last year on one slate, but I double stacked the game that he was in, and I just put him in as quarterback. This is one of the mistakes sometimes people make. Not a mistake. It's a different game now than it was back in the day. It used to always be quarterback and the receivers. I had Keenan Allen on one side, who was like 1%, 2% owned, and scored like 48 fantasy points. It was nuts. And Amon-Ra on the other side, and he scored like what was he? I think he had 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, something like that. It was just a crazy, crazy game. I'm sorry, but one of them was on an end around. And I was just like, can Goff get me more than 10 fantasy points? Can he get me more? And he threw one late, which almost got me there, but didn't quite get me there. But the whole time it was the same thing. It was like, oh, they stalled out again. 5 field goals today. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, Brandon, always so fun talking with you about this stuff. Really excited about tonight. Hopefully we can get to see some screenshots from yourself and the rest of the people. For Brandon, I'm saying good luck. We'll be in Discord, everybody. I'll post my exposure shortly. And let's make some money. Let's get some good luck going into the weekend. There's not a whole lot of sports tomorrow. In fact, I don't know what, if anything, is going on. Maybe there's League of Legends stuff going on.
There's NASCAR.
Oh, there's NASCAR. Never mind. There's a big NASCAR stuff going on tomorrow.
Yeah. But midday too. I'll be live tomorrow, like 2 or I guess like 3 or maybe 2:30 Eastern time in the afternoon. It's like an early race on Friday.
Oh, nice. I should. What I should do, just so we get the who gets to talk thing, because I talk so much more than everybody else. I just want to come in and be an observer on your shows, because I cannot say, I have nothing to weigh in, nothing to advertise. I have some questions I could ask, I guess, but one of these days I got to do that. If I have any time, I don't think I do tomorrow, but because I've got a whole personal day planned, because I didn't think there was any sports, but I forget sometimes about the sports that I don't cover. But I also did want to say I'm going to be at the Dodger game on Saturday. There should be a good baseball slate on Saturday. Should be a 4-gamer, and I'm pumped to get back after that. These baseball slates have actually been really, really fun, even though they've been low scoring. But I'm expecting that to start changing very soon. So I'm pumped for my Dodgers, and I'm pumped for the real playoffs to start after these wild card stuff is over. Anyway, so NASCAR, what time did you say it was tomorrow, Brandon?
I think I'll be live like 2:30 Eastern. I could be wrong. I think that's what I'm thinking right now. Okay. I'll be live at some point in the afternoon.
Okay. All right. Well, hope that goes well, man.